I feel, we'll say, I feel invited by some of my friends to join the screaming,
Yeah.
and I don't agree with everything that's going on out there. So, I could get into the screaming, but my overwhelming feeling is actually profound sadness, because what I feel from all that screaming is actually people feeling unseen and unheard and alone. And that feels just like crushingly sad to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I feel I feel as a former teacher, I would see students who would come to class who almost would have turned feelings off. Like when I say turn them off, is like, hey, how you doing this morning? Nothing. All right, okay,
Hmm.
all right. Well, go ahead. Hey, go ahead and take out your work, and whether it's anger or not, or feeling anything, you would just see this like disconnectedness from just being in their own body, and I would say, or sometimes I have a kid show anger. So great, you showing anger, okay? I'm like, but why are you yelling at me? Like, I'm not your enemy. I'm not. I only asked you to take out your book. Like, why are you now? And because they have a disconnected more parts of their emotions, they only have a reserve for a few left. So if in our community weakness and sadness and fear and worry and doubt are not allowed, but anger is allowed, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you can't be like, Mr. Branch, leave me alone. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. You got to be like,
Hmm.
stop bothering me. So you got to like
Yeah.
lash out with anger because anger is respected. Being overwhelmed is not respected. Being worried or afraid or sad or whatever other emotion is not respected. But if I'm angry, people be like, oh, he's scary. We better leave him alone, right? Even though that's
Hmm.
fear, not necessarily respect. But in some communities, fear looks like respect. Welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast. My name is Ashanti Branch, and I'm really glad you've joined us. Today's guest is Newton Cheng. He's a father, he's a husband, he's a professional powerlifter, a national champion powerlifter at that. And he has been really sharing some really powerful messages on LinkedIn that I'm really thankful for, and which is why we're having this conversation today. In his conversation today, you're going to hear him reflect on that original post that kind of really connected us. But he had been seeing our work with the mask you live in back since 2015. I'm really glad that it has been that video, that documentary has given him some fuel over this journey to share his words with others, to share some of his truth with others. You know, in this conversation, we got to talk about our masks, about work, about leadership, about being responsible for people and projects and things that matter. In this Million Mask movement, as you know, we've been inviting people around the world to make masks. It's been really great to meet new men in my life who are kindred spirits, who are passionate about this work as well. You know, if we walk by each other on the street, if I saw him in the gym just powerlifting, I probably wouldn't have known that we could sit down and have a conversation about emotions and feelings and those type of things. But it's because what we get stuck believing we see on the outside. I hope that these conversations will give more people opportunity to find people in their life that they're willing to ask more questions to, go deeper with, to help them see, to know that they're not alone. I think it's so important to this work. I invite you that if you know somebody in your life who you think could benefit from these conversations, maybe you share the podcast with them. Maybe you invite them to be on the show. Tell them about the podcast. Tell me about them. Let me introduce them. Let me invite them. Because I think that what we want to do is to, in this next series of these podcasts, is to invite more men, young men, old men, all age men, to conversations, to intergenerational conversations around why we do and why we operate the way we operate. That's going to be this next season. And so we want you to be a part of this. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, you can do that on YouTube. If you like to watch it, if you want to listen on podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts, please give us a rating, like rank like it, support it. What do you call it? Subscribe to it. I forgot the other word. I was looking for like give us a stars or something. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, here's what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to get involved. If you find value here, please help somebody else find value here. And if there's something you want to see that we're not doing yet, please let us know. You know, we're open to ideas and thinking about how we structure the next 100 episodes of this show. Thank you for being a part of what we're doing so far, and we look forward to the next steps. As we move towards a million masks, as we get closer to 11/11/24, we're excited about the work that is going out into the world. So thank you. We couldn't do this without you. And we ask that if you are inspired by this work, please go ahead and make your mask. And maybe you invite one friend to make a mask also. And I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Newton Cheng. We started the conversation before the podcast even got recorded, but we pick up on most of the topics. And I hope that you will find somebody in your life, if you're feeling any of the feelings that we shared, that you find somebody who you can talk to. And if not, you can make your mask anonymously and recognize that you're not alone. Take care, everybody. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Be well. Ever forward. Newton, hello. It is so good to see you. And thank you for being on the Taking Off the Mask podcast. How are you?
I am very good. It is awesome to see you. I think we met. I can't remember how we met actually, but your name has come up so many times. Of like, do you know Ashanti Branch? She's amazing. And then I'll say the one thing that you did for me that lives with me and has kind of been a critical part of my journey is you were in the documentary The Mask You Live In. And the aha for me, like no one had ever explained to me that men were socialized to turn all our feelings into pretty much just anger.
Yeah.
And then when I heard you talk about that, my head pretty much exploded. I'm like, I only experienced two emotions, happiness and anger. That was a big wake up call for me. So I've been slowly unpacking that box since that was like what, back in 2015.
Yeah. That's
So
when it came
so
out.
you've been with
Yeah.
me for the last 7 years, unpacking the box with your words. I'm really grateful.
Oh man. Well, I'm glad you saw it. I'm glad you saw it. That's where this came from. This work, right? This
Mm-hmm.
providing those young men in that room an opportunity to express their mask. And I didn't even know it was going to work. You know, like what we get to do today is an evolution of that room at Fremont High School in Oakland, California. And I actually gave them a mask. I didn't ask them to. I just asked them to write some words. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad. I'm really glad that spoke to you, because it's been a labor of love in this last, since the documentary came out. That's when it came out. We recorded maybe a year before that, so it's just been a journey of like talking to people everyone who stops and listen. I'm gonna tell them about the mask, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Well,
it's a
we
it's a
we appreciate you and what you do. It's really important, especially today.
Well, I appreciate you, man, and thanks for being willing to be on this conversation. How about this? Will you introduce yourself to folks? I want them to hear from you what you want them to know about you, and then we're gonna jump in. And I think we were talking for a few minutes even before we started, and then I was like, "Wait, have we started? We haven't. We already had started before we started." So I'm really glad that it's. I think it's gonna be a beautiful conversation. So I would let folks know who you are and what you want them to know about you.
All right. My name is Newton Cheng. I am a husband and father to two daughters via adoption. I'm a competitive athlete, so I'm a national and world champion masters powerlifter. And then I am a leader at Google, where I oversee our health and performance programs. And we speak to provide spaces and services, both physical and now digital, now that we're in the hybrid environment, to tend to not just the physical, but also mental, social, and spiritual health of our Google community. And I say Google community because it's primarily our Google employees, but we know we're all interconnected. So we need to think about families. We need to think about our local communities. And that's not an easy thing to address, but it's worth taking on.
Man, and thank you for having that platform and being willing to share. I think when I first started to like engage with your work was via LinkedIn, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what date it was, but I remember what it made me feel. I don't remember what the words were. I just know it was like a man being open and clear, and as clear as you were able to be in that pose, but it was heartfelt, right? And as a
Yeah.
person who feels a lot, feels more than I sometimes want to feel. I was feeling it, and I was like, oh, and I just replied, and I said, man, thank you for, you know, in essence, I was just like appreciating you and just like thanking you for being willing to let other people see you more fully, right? I think that's what we try and do with our young men in our work is like, you're human and there's
Hmm.
more to you than you're letting people see. How much more could you find room to let people see you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe I'll give a little context on that LinkedIn post for your listeners. So back in January 2022, I went on mental health leave. I was burnt out. The pandemic was tough. Well, at least that's why I thought I went on leave for burnout. And then once I got to spend some time with myself, my thoughts, my therapist, what I saw was the pandemic was just an accelerant. I have when we get into the masks, there you'll see a bit of a contrast. I've recently come to realize, even though I'm pretty Zen and or I come across as Zen, and I show as someone with mastery of my emotions, like you, I think I have a lot more feelings than I think, and I'm realizing actually I think I'm a pretty sensitive person, and a lot of that had been bottled up. And so, a good friend of mine from the powerlifting community, Ross Lepela, he's an amazing lifter and coach, but he's also an amazing man who's trying to show uh, what it looks like to for men to go on a self healing journey. And he gave me space on his podcast to share my story of where I had been going into burnout and what I learned along the way. And so, what happened next was, we did the podcast. I said, if I want to do good, I should put it out there. So I put it on Facebook, I put it on Instagram, and then my wife and a friend of mine said, "Well, shouldn't you put it on LinkedIn?" And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, maybe." And so we went back and forth, and then when I thought about it, and I started to look around and see, especially for my we'll say referent group, are there Asian male leaders, straight Asian male leaders in tech who are being vulnerable about mental health? I found a few, but really not very many. And so I took a deep breath. I wrote up a post. I hit post on LinkedIn, and the response was way bigger than what I got on Instagram or Facebook. And then and then the offline response of people reaching out to me directly or via direct messages to say, I feel this way, or my brother feels this way and he doesn't have someone to talk to. It was overwhelming. So then I did it again and the response was great. And I did it again and the response is great. So I'm going to keep doing it, so that more people can see this. More people might consider maybe they could show up different. Maybe they could get help. Maybe they could get the support they need, because we all really, really need that right now.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that part, right? To get help, and I think I grew up in a community where you're not supposed to ask for help. You're definitely not supposed to need help, and you better not be fear and worry and sad. You better be tough, strong. You better all these like it was really clear, and it wasn't written on a wall anywhere. It wasn't in a manual. It was societal pressure that was constantly and almost always in your face. Like like I remember being in elementary school having a fight. Didn't My first day at a new school, I didn't want to fight. I was so happy. Kids were playing tag at this school. They had grass at this school. I was like, what? First day, fight. Not because I wanted to, but because the rules were you can let this kid keep picking on you. It's never going to stop. If you
Mm,
tell the teacher, you're going to get worse because you're going to be like, it was like, I mean, I'm a fourth grader knowing the rules of my society and community and to have a fight the first day of a new school. You look like the kid who's like bringing trouble. And I was
yeah,
not looking for trouble. I was looking to play tag with some friends, new friends.
yeah,
And I think that pressure starts with young people when they're really young. When they become old, they just get programmed into the old behaviors. And when
yeah,
do you find a space to like be like, that doesn't serve me anymore? That
yeah.
the
That's
way I was raised, the way I was believing, it doesn't serve me anymore.
that's I don't know. It makes me pretty sad to think about, you as a fourth grader. There, you were there to play. You were there to be a kid, and to thrust you into something like that is, that's pretty traumatic.
I mean, it happens. I think it happens a lot with our young people. You know, we're talking
Yeah.
about young men and boys, but it happens to a lot of kids, right? Who have to feel the pressure of what people expect them to do, be, have, hopefully, and
Hmm.
realize that they don't feel like enough, and so you're constantly in a chase for trying to be who other people need you to be, which is a moving target all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think like I've noticed this. I think it's a coping strategy I have about myself is you look generation to generation and you go, well, it's better than it was when I was a kid. And then I dismiss it.
Yeah,
And now that I have two daughters, it's gotten very very real, and I have to say like, well, maybe it's better, but is it what you want?
yeah.
And the answer in so many situations is no. So we have work to do.
We got work to do. Well, man, I'm excited. I mean, folks, this podcast it changes, right? Sometimes we jump right into the mass. Sometimes there's a conversation build up. You as our guest, you get to decide: do you want me to go first with the mask, or do you want to go first? And then one of us will share the front, and then we'll alternate who shares the other front.
Why don't I go first?
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think I used to have a fear of public speaking, so something I trained into myself as a kid. Like, well, first my parents made me do speech team, which actually I thank them for, because once you understand how to do verbal communication, especially to large groups, and
Yeah,
you see people who can't do it, you're like, oh, this is just unfair. Like I have a superpower now. So that's a big thank you to mom and dad.
awesome,
Um,
awesome.
so so now I'm going to jump in and go first because
Okay.
that's trained into me.
Well,
So
you do the front, and then I'll do the front, or you can do front and back. However you want to do it, we'll do it. We'll follow you. I'll follow your lead.
let's uh, let's do front and then you do front.
Okay, fantastic.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I think we can see that. So this is my Zen face. You can see the sun shining down on me. So even if there's cloud and there's thunderstorm, somehow I will look like this. And if the sun's not shining down on me, I will emanate the sun back into the sky, or at least that's what I will try to do. And so my three words are kind. So I think that's genuinely me. But I think I also try to project that optimistic, and I think that goes into not just how I lead, but how I cope,
Mm,
and then Zen. So I'm very conscious of my presence and how that affects others. And so I know like if I can project Zen, then I can gift you with Zen, or you might be able to feel my Zen. And so this is Zen Newton.
we beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Oh man. All right. Well, this I'm not sure what I was drawing today, but it's let's see what happens. Um, I found this new pencil that I really like. So this is the mask. I was thinking like if I was gonna do eyes, like I don't know. Anyway, there's some expression there happening. That's how it's happening today. And I put funny, serious, and dedicated.
Mm,
And I think today, I mean, oftentimes I've been really writing, trying to find new words, right? Because I've been making a lot of these. But caring is usually one that when I first heard it, I'm like, yeah, I feel that. I want to be putting that. But today, funny, serious, dedicated has been where it is, right? Like I dance between the trying to keep things light and funny because I love to laugh. I enjoy laughing. Uh, and very serious. And like with the young people I work with, like sometimes serious takes over, right? And every
mm,
once in a while I'll drop a little joke in there and they'll miss the joke because I've been so serious for so long that they're like, should I laugh at that? Like, right. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm telling you a joke here, right? But I think that serious, I'm not sure why funny is first on where I wrote it because I think I want to be the funny person, fun all the time. But because I have, and it's really connected to the back, right? But I'm really dedicated to like push things forward, right? To like work really hard. Hard working is one also. So I think dedicated and serious, like connected to this idea that I gotta get stuff done. Like and and actually now that I'm thinking about it, it may be connected to why I don't rest enough, right? Like
Mm,
I'm constantly on go, like go 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 go, and
yeah.
uh, and I think. maybe sometime I think, that's interesting. Maybe I think that the funny is trying to like that's my rest moment from the serious and the dedicated work that I have to get done. But I do know ultimately that um, it's not enough. It has not been enough, and so now I'm
Yeah.
finally starting to become aware that I need to be giving myself more time to decompress from all the serious and dedicated work to then be back on task, on target toward the dreams I have. You know.
Do you, on the serious, like that resonates with me, where I think I always try to inject humor, but then I'm also trying to give weight to like the mission of what we're working on, and it's important. And I think that message is kind of for people around me, but it's also back to me, because sometimes I feel weary, or I think, is this working, or does anyone care? And so I need to hear that message over and over and over, and it can override other messages sometimes.
Oh man, without a doubt. And I think what I've done on in error is like in my mind sometimes trying to keep things light and funny, and is that I'm telling people I'm trying to correct behavior. You know, when you're a leader, you have to correct things that are not going the way they should go. And so I'm like, hey, you know, I really want you to work on X, Y, Z. And I'm saying it in such a light, trying to be light because you know I have a presence that's sometimes that's a little bit. I have a big presence. I'm a big person, right? But also I have a big voice and I'm loud, and so I try to like keep it light, but then the message gets missed. Like,
Mm,
and then 3 months later, I'm like, hey, you know, we talked about this a couple of months ago, and they didn't catch that I was being serious. Like,
mm.
and so I did a disservice to them because I was trying to dance between serious and being and levity and being
Yeah.
kind. And I think I heard Brene Brown says clear is kind. And sometimes I'm trying to be so kind that I'm not being really clear, and therefore it creates a conflict. You know?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an art to that. I experienced it, as a leader trying to flex like that. And then the example I saw where it just blew my mind was when Dave Chappelle did that piece at his farm on George Floyd. And to see him flex between humor to one of the most horrifying things many of us have ever seen, and go back and forth and weave it together. I'm
Mm,
like, okay, there's a whole other level to this. I mean, he's about 1,000 levels above where I am in communication right now. But
yeah.
um, yeah, I resonate with that struggle.
Oh, that's so powerful. And I'm gonna go back and watch that again because I remember watching it and I was like, I mean, I got goosebumps even thinking about it again. Like the time that he had it at the right. I think it was called the number of minutes that that man was on his neck. You know, like
Hmm.
just the power of that, of the power of being able to convey a message with clarity. And I think that's a beautiful point. The levity and the seriousness, right? The
Yeah,
humor and the intensity of our words. You know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Such a
Mm,
That's a high wire act of the greatest difficulty.
that's right. That's right. Especially in a society as for him, where anything he says out of somebody's view of alignment of what it should say can cause his career to have some repercussions, right?
Yes,
Now,
absolutely.
I'm not talking to that many people when I post a video, but I I would hope that I'm never trying to do harm, but somebody can always
Hmm.
take your words and spin them to a way that makes it seem like you are, right? And then I have to be careful not to suck into that because I'm chasing other people's thoughts and feelings all the time, you know?
Yes, yeah. I
Hmm.
relate to that.
Wow. Okay. Well, that was just the front. That was just the
All
front.
right. Yeah, we already started. I feel like we started peeking towards the back already.
All right. All right. Well, you're first. Well, you already started, so now it's on you. The
Yeah,
back. Okay.
I think I'll before I go to my back, I think I'll
Okay.
connect a dot where we started peeking towards the back already, and the thing that I've started learning is that the concept of shadow.
Mm,
Everything's a double edged sword. So the front and back are inextricably connected.
yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, one of the most profound things I heard recently was there's a podcast called The One You Feed,
Mm,
where they bring in a lot of experts on mindfulness, and they always start the conversation with this question of, there's this parable about inside all of us there are two wolves. There's one that goes towards light and good, and the other that goes towards anger and dark. And uh, someone asks, well, which one wins? And the answer is the one you feed. And so then they ask, well, how do you react to that? And everyone says, feed the wolf of light, except for one person who said, well, I think you feed them both, because it gets really, really hard to tell which wolf is which. So you feed them both, but you feed them both with compassion.
Mm,
And so that's what I've been doing. So I'm going to go to the back of my mask, and
okay.
I've been feeding this back of the mask compassion, and I think it's
Ooh,
getting better.
okay. I'm looking for all right.
All right. So the reason I had to take like an hour before this is, when I started to make the mask, I just wanted to jump to angry and overwhelmed. It's like the really easy stuff to identify. And then I started asking a little bit more like, well, why? Like, why are you angry? Like, what's in there? And then it started to get I had to have a pretty hard conversation with myself. And so I'll start first with resentful.
Mm,
And so I'm a people pleaser, like for good reasons, because I want to take care of others, and then bad reasons because I think I'm seeking love and acceptance. And so I will give beyond what I should in order to get that. At some point, I start to
mm,
get weary, I get overwhelmed, I start to get resentful, where I'm like, okay, I've given a lot. Like, everyone, can you please back off me? But I don't have the skills to lay down that boundary. I'm working on it, but that's something that I am just realizing like now, like I have not built that skill in my life. So it starts out with resentment. Then, having a sense of radical personal responsibility, the next voice goes, hey, this is all your fault. Like, you built this situation, you had control over it. So whose fault is this? And so it goes to self-judgment. And then from the self-judgment, it's like, okay, well, you better fix this. Like, you better make it better. And so the voice in my head, it doubles down and it starts pushing. And this is where I see there's kind of like maybe two or separate parts of my brain. There's like, the person cracking the whip going, go, go, go. And then
mm.
there's this smaller part of me it's just perpetually weary, that says, all right, I gotta go. Like, there's more to be done. I would really like to rest, but no one wants to hear it. And so when I interrogated myself, I'm like, what does that feel like? Like, the word that came to me was alone. And I had to sit with that, because I'm like, I don't, any given moment of the day, I don't feel lonely. But then I asked myself, is there a part of you that feels lonely? And it felt like it gave that part of my brain permission to say like 100% yes. Thank you for naming that. And so there's someone in there, like inside me, who's doing the work, who feels really lonely and unseen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I resonate with those. I resonate
Yeah.
with those, and I was thinking about I was thinking about the resentful, and when you started there, and lonely. I think. Hmm. So I'm gonna weave this into the back. I'm gonna before I just start talking because I get it. Hmm. Okay. Here we go. Let me. So I wrote it like this. Thank you. First of all, thank
Hmm.
you. Thank you again because um, as I probably try and describe this, like those could have been mine for today. Like, and I think I've been processing them a lot. Those words and the ones I wrote for today were I wrote sensitive, I feel like
Mm.
worry and fear, and when I put I feel, I left it blank. Like I feel a lot. I feel sometimes more things than I really want to feel. I try and describe this idea that I helped raise my siblings, and like I was like the
Hmm.
man of the house at 7 years old. So I was always kind of like air traffic control. Like when my mom came home from work, I could tell like when the way she got out of her car. I could always know we had a noisy car, so I could always know when she was on her way home. I look out the window. I could tell the way she grabbed her stuff out of the car. whether it was going to be a good evening or kind of a rough evening.
Wow.
And I was
Okay.
always kind of like, everybody get down here. Like, it was just like me trying to like scaffold the house to be
Mm,
okay. And I think that I was always having to pick up on her feelings to know how we were going to do as a family, because I'm I'm when she's not there, I'm in charge. So I got to like channel the wellness of the home.
yeah.
And things I didn't really want to have to do. Like I didn't want to have to be thinking about that. So I went just we went to like a family party. I didn't get to go and just play with my cousins. I had to go and take care of my siblings and make sure everybody was okay. Like
Mm,
like that was responsibility. It wasn't like we get there and everyone gets to go out and play. No, Ashanti got to go and make sure the littlest one gets food, gets fed, that he doesn't get hurt, that he blah blah blah. And I'm like, everyone else is having fun, and I'm like head on a swivel trying to make sure that no one gets damaged.
yeah.
And my sister, uh, yeah, that one came up. My sister on wow, this came out of nowhere. On Father's Day, she wrote me a text and she was like, "My sister, I love my sisters. I'm the oldest, and my sister then is my brother. She's a superstar, like HR manager, director. She's got two little beautiful boys, my two nephews. I don't have any kids, and like I think I want them, but I know how much work it is. Like I don't think
Mm-hmm.
of babies as being exciting. I think of babies as being a lot of work. You know what I mean? Like I was raising kids as a kid. Like, and so I think of
Yeah.
like when I'm so proud of her, when I see her to hang out with my nephews, like I get to be uncle and I get to play and I get to just be silly. And she like tells my nephews stop playing around. I'm like, hey, I'm in charge right here. You back off, right? Um, but she wrote me a message on Father's Day and she was like, thank you for sacrificing. She said,
Wow.
I didn't like you a lot growing up, but I'm but I'm really thankful for you. And I was on her, right? Because I grew up I knew this city. I knew what the boys in my city would
Mm-hmm.
tell her. And I didn't want her to be looking for love from some other boys out there, knowing that they were looking for something in return. Like, so I was on her a lot, but so thankful for
Mm-hmm.
her. And so I think that about that. I think about like I deep down have always wanted to be a father.
Mm-hmm.
I think more so just on my family tree, after my name is right there, it's gone. And I
Yeah.
feel that. I feel that sometimes, like, but I know that it's not fair to any child or any woman to like be like, I want to make a baby just to add this on this family tree if I'm not really willing to do all the hard work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I think I feel sometimes resentful that I didn't get to just enjoy being a kid so I could enjoy one day being a father as opposed to being a father as a kid. And so but I'm just I feel that. So that's been a word that's been
Mm.
resonating with me a lot lately. So
Can
yeah,
I
thank you.
can I reflect something back to you that I've
Please.
heard two or three times now?
Yeah.
You've said sometimes I feel more than I should, and I'm wondering like, where's that value judgment come from? Is it that as a kid you had to hold back your feelings because you were playing assistant dad to everyone,
Mhm.
and now you're still carrying that, or what do you think that is?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. When I think the way I've described it lately, and I just actually just realized it. I was talking to a group of educators in LA, and I talked about like I feel everything. Like,
Mm,
so when like if I remember on Instagram and they have the little eyeball and it's like, are you sure you want to see this? I read the caption to figure out what it's about to be, because when I watch images, I feel it. Like I can see two
mm,
people in the parking lot, like way over there having an argument. I feel it. Like I see it. I can feel the energy. So I think I pick up on energy really quickly, right? So because I was
mm,
raised by my mom, like I got good at that. So when I was in a classroom in school, I could tell when I was like getting on the teacher's nerves and it was a little bit too much, right? I'm okay getting on your nerves. I'll get on your nerves. But if I get to the place where I'm like about to make you angry, I'm like, oh boy, this is getting too far. So I would
Mm,
like, so I would know when to stop. Some of my friends wouldn't pick up. I'm like, stop it, knock it off. I'm done, right? Because I knew when I was going over the line. So when I say I feel everything, like, I can't imagine for kids who are big feelers what social media is doing to them today, right? Here's
yeah.
in one way like this. I when I see something tragic happening, like our kids are watching. Like, it's one thing to be watching a movie and be watching people getting kind of killed or slaughtered on a movie, right? I think some parts of your brain was like, oh, that was entertainment, even though you're seeing some graphic things. But when we're watching this on social media now, like they're watching literal people dying. I there's sometimes when I'm like, oh my god! And so when I feel it there, then I'm thinking about all the kids who are watching this. Who are what are they feeling? So when I say I feel so much, sometimes I don't want to feel all these things. I don't just feel
Mm,
it for myself. I feel it for our community. I feel it for our world. I feel it for our children. I feel it, and sometimes I wish I could just turn some of those feelings off. I know it
yeah.
makes. I know it's who I am. I don't. Maybe I don't really want to turn them off, but sometimes they just get heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said earlier, I can't remember if it was before we were recording, where I think I'm realizing that I do also have a lot of feelings and I'm sensitive. And one thing that I've realized is, as the world gets more and more divided and there's screaming and there's anger, um, on the one hand, I feel, we'll say, I feel invited by some of my friends to join the screaming,
Yeah.
and I don't agree with everything that's going on out there. So, I could get into the screaming, but my overwhelming feeling is actually profound sadness, because what I feel from all that screaming is actually people feeling unseen and unheard and alone. And that feels just like crushingly sad to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I feel I feel as a former teacher, I would see students who would come to class who almost would have turned feelings off. Like when I say turn them off, is like, hey, how you doing this morning? Nothing. All right, okay,
Hmm.
all right. Well, go ahead. Hey, go ahead and take out your work, and whether it's anger or not, or feeling anything, you would just see this like disconnectedness from just being in their own body. And I would say, or sometimes I have a kid show anger. So great, you showing anger, okay. I'm like, but why are you yelling at me? Like, I'm not your enemy. I'm not. I only asked you to take out your book. Like, why are you now? And because they have a disconnected more parts of their emotions, they only have a reserve for a few left. So if in our community weakness and sadness and fear and worry and doubt are not allowed, but anger is allowed. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you can't be like, Mr. Branch, leave me alone. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. You got to be like,
Hmm.
stop bothering me. So you got to like
Yeah.
lash out with anger because anger is respected. Being overwhelmed is not respected. Being worried or afraid or sad or whatever other emotion is not respected. But if I'm angry, people will be like, oh, he's scary. We better leave him alone, right? Even though that's
Hmm.
fear, not necessarily respect. But in some communities, fear looks like respect, or respect
Yeah.
looks like fear, or feels like fear. And so I think that kind of thing where I'm just like, okay, there's a lot. There's a lot to support the young people as we're helping them find words for how they feel. Right?
Hmm.
How are you feeling? We just came back from Sacramento. We did a little ceremony with some of the young people, just a deep conversation. And one of the boys was talking about losing a pet, and
Wow.
another boy in the circle started laughing. At first, he was laughing kind of inside. He was like keeping. He was doing his best to keep it in, but he was laughing. And I was like, "Do I say something now? Do I wait? I'm trying to test the water." And then that laugh started spreading, and I stopped everything. And inside, my heart was breaking for that kid who was sharing something personal and
Hmm.
real. And these boys who were supposed to be a part of this circle with him started laughing. And I was also angry. So I was feeling sad for him and anger. And you know what? I found myself wanting to do is just focus on the anger.
Hmm.
Like I was upset with these boys for doing this. And I realized I said, And I had to tell him, I said, you know what, right now, actually, I'm actually more sad than I am anger, but I'm having a hard time really expressing this anger, this
Yeah.
sadness. Anger is usually easier for me to express, but I'm really sad that you all disrespected him like that, you know? And I think trying to help my own self learn how to navigate and talk about it hopefully helps them learn how to navigate and talk about it better because sometimes it's confusing. Like I felt my heart felt for that boy who was heart was breaking, and so anger was coming out, but deep
Yeah.
down I was feeling overwhelming sadness for him and that he was being vulnerable and it wasn't not being respected. You know?
Yeah. It makes me think like, as a kid, if I were in a group of boys and I'm observing someone feeling deep grief,
Yeah,
and now you ask me like, okay, how do you show up now? I don't know. I
yeah,
like maybe I join in the laughter too because I don't want to be seen as soft.
yeah,
Maybe I join in the laughter because if I don't, I'm gonna cry.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Wow, that's
Exactly.
amazing.
That's powerful right there. And you're right. I think after we talked about it, we had to talk about it because it was already out. You know, some of them didn't know how to navigate hearing one of their peers talk about feeling sad, and now knowing how to what do I do with this emotion? What do I do with this emotion that I'm trying to protect myself from feeling, or that I've never been allowed to feel? And I think that and these are boys who are like 13, 14 years old, right? I mean, imagine if you become an adult where you see something that just could should it's hard to say should create some emotion, but has a situation that creates some for most empathetic people would be like there's some empathy there. What if you didn't
Hmm.
find empathy for someone? What if you were like, whatever, so what? I don't care. And that's totally right. You have the right to everyone has the right to be how we are, but just knowing that sometimes it's been because we've been shutting it off so long that we have no room to even share it with others, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think the shutting it off. It's kind of like I could approach it two ways. If I'm depleted or I can't be with you on this, but I recognize the feeling with you, I can draw a boundary in a more healthy way,
Yeah,
or I can do what's most more socially acceptable, which is to say like, nah, it's not that big a deal. Like suck it up, let's go.
yeah, yeah. Why are you tripping? Why are you
Yeah,
tripping about that? It's just nothing but a little animal. So what?
yeah.
Right? And I think that's what happens in schools. That's what happens when I hear from bullies when I was an administrator. Oh, I was just trying to make him tough. Like,
Mm,
wait, you felt like it was your responsibility to make this kid tough? Like, why isn't he tough already? Why is tough the way you think tough should look? And
mm,
those kind of things that I've heard young people say, it was passed down from somebody else because they're only 12 or, I was a middle school administrator. Who'd you learn? You're only 13 years old. You're 12 years old. Where did you learn that from? In the last 12 years, you've learned that it's your job to make other people tough. And that means
mm-hmm,
I'm going to push on them, press on them, punch on them. That's how you do it. And I'm like, wow, where'd that come from?
mm.
And it happens so often. It happens so often.
I think
Hmm.
I think we only got one word into your the back of your mask.
Well, I think I just summed them all up. I think that was the one decided to spend. I'll go with the when I talk about I feel like I think what was it worry and
Mm,
fear sensitive is also one. I think that it's all connected, right? I think the fear. I'll talk about fear because this is about leadership right now because I think there's one that I'm really working a lot on myself, like really trying to grow. I think, and when you talked about like the idea of feeling resentful, like when I think about leadership, like the leader has to take on all the stuff, right? Ultimately, the ultimate responsibility, like you as a leader have to hold it, carry it.
hmm.
And I think that sometimes I wonder, I mean, in the fear, the worry, the like self doubt, it's like a lot of feelings in there. But my focus is always trying to just be like focused, serious, dedicated, get it done. Don't worry about the stuff back there. But when I get a chance to kind of give myself permission, I'm like, man, like, how do I make this work? How do I set this big goal for ourselves as an organization, like, right? A million masks. I said it for myself personally, but also I'm not in it just telling people to do stuff. I'm in it. And I'm like, how are we going to do this? How? And I know that part of my job is just to be a carrier of the message, and part of
Mm-hmm.
my work is also to be a person who is sharing the vision with others. Because I know it's not going to be me who does it all. It's engaging other people in the process so that we create literally a movement. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that only recently did I think the worry has been diminishing a little bit because I've been like, oh, maybe my job was never to do it all. My job was to, I was given the vision, right? And my
Mm-hmm.
job is to find other people who also can buy into that vision to then do the work, right? But I
Yeah.
didn't start this going to some leadership class. I started this as a teacher helping some kids pass algebra. And so I kind of am learning on the job training, right? So it's kind of like, but recently I got a coach, and that's been really helpful. Like just learning some things that I had never even thought of. Just I think it's like all those things are kind of wrapped into this mask that leadership requires us to wear, right? And I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, I've started reading this book called, it's by a woman named Susan Beaumont. And I think
Oh,
it's called something like How to Lead When You Don't Know Where You're Going. And
good.
I've never seen a more intriguing title where I'm like, I think I need that now. And to anyone from my team listening, I'm like, I kind of know where I'm going. It's like, don't lose confidence in me. But who she consults with are large churches where their
mm,
congregation is diminishing, and you
mm,
need a certain type of leadership to shepherd them out of the, their old identity of like, I'm sorry, like that phase of our existence is over.
yeah.
We're going to paint a future vision. Things in between, they're murky, and I need to keep this organization together in between. And um, I feel like that, like on any given day, I can feel like that. But one of the things that I read in there that I don't know if it applies to my work, but it's something I hadn't engaged with because I didn't want to think about it, was for her, she tells church leaders, and you need to accept that even if you lay out the vision, you might not be the leader to take the organization all the way there. And and if at the end of the day they're serving God, I think maybe that's an easier thing for them to get their head around. For like, God
Mm,
is infinite. Of course, like this mission will outlive me.
yeah.
Um, in my work, and our organization's vision is to create a culture of well-being that inspires people around the world to take care of themselves and each other,
Yeah.
and to wrestle with, could I walk away not being able to point to something or tell a narrative that I 100% authentically believe, saying, I think we took some major steps down the road on that. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know how I'd feel about that.
I think it's really beautiful the way you describe that. And even um, thinking about that book, how there's an old Quaker educator teacher. His name is um, Parker Palmer. Parker Palmer, and he talked about this. The book was called Courage to Teach, right? And his concept was the critical gap. And he says that we're asked to stand in the critical gap, and the gap is between where we are right now and where we want to be. So if I'm here right now where I am, and here's where I want to be, we're not asked to stay where we are right now. We're asked to start taking a step in the gap between where we are now and where I want to be. And what it allows us to kind of begin doing, as even for me as a leader, it really was something that resonates with me. It's like, okay, here's where kind of where we are, but I'm not stuck there. Because if you believe you're stuck there, then it's almost impossible to get across the gap.
Hmm.
If you believe that I'm stuck where I am right now, but as opposed to like, here is the gap. There's a gap between where I am now and where I want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, organizationally, personally, health wise, all these ways. But I'm not stuck where I am right now. What step can I take? What's one step I can take? And so I think that what you talked about is like, as I'm in a journey to where I'm going to be, I may not be me as ever forward. I may not be here when we achieve the million masks. I may not be here when we achieve eliminating the dropout rate. I may not be here, but I would have on my journey kept taking steps towards it. And when
Mm,
it's my time to go, whenever that may be, that I leave here knowing that I gave my best. I didn't get stuck. The systems would tell you to don't do it. The systems of nonprofit industrial complex that I live in, that I work in, would be like, if you don't have big money, you don't have big resources, you can't really do much. That's the way they would have you believe. And I've decided that I'm not going to be stuck there. I'm not going to be at the
mm,
mercy of anybody's checks. I'm not going to be at the mercy of anybody's support. That I'm going to keep following the vision that I've been given. And I'm going to keep taking steps in that gap. And some days I feel that. Some days I feel like, am I enough? Am I the person who should be doing this? And I'm not overthinking that I have to be. I know that I'm on this mission with whoever is going to help lead it, right? Because I got a lot to learn still. But I'm not going to wait around for somebody to come and take over this, right? I'm not going to wait for the
mm-hmm.
enough money to hire a big team. I'm not waiting for any of that. Um, and I think that that's, I don't know, maybe it's a fault, but I think I can't stop. I can't, there's too many kids. Every time one person makes a
Yeah,
mask, that's one more person who I think that I've seen. They were willing to let themselves be seen. They're willing to let themselves be heard. And that's one more person who doesn't feel as lonely, as alone, right?
yeah. If we were in person, I would high five you right now.
Mm,
You know, another thing that I use for my life as a competitive powerlifter, where once I won my first national championship and then started competing at the world level. You start getting these questions about like, well, how'd you do that? And then you kind of have to think it through, and you're like, was there any magic? And the thing I can boil it down to is like, well, I went in my garage like for a few hours a week every week, and I just kept doing squats, and they hurt, and I just kept doing them. And then one day I looked up and I was the best in the US at that. So I kept doing squats, and then I got better and better. And so sometimes I just tell my team, like, yeah, I don't know when we'll get there, but we have to just keep doing the reps. Just do the reps.
do the reps. That's it. That's it. Do the reps. That's that man. Do the reps. There it is. And that's what we talk
Yep.
about, young men. We're gonna keep doing the reps. What are you feeling today? I don't know. We'll try. What are you feeling? Find a word. Find a word to name what you're feeling. Right. Do the reps of like
Mm-hmm.
asking people how they're doing. How are you doing? And when they say fine, anything more behind that fine? Because fine is a fine. If you're fine, great. But what if fine is just a cover up word, right?
Yeah.
The reps, right? The reps of being curious about people more than
Mm-hmm.
just what you see on the outside,
Yes.
Yeah. Mm, man. I first of all, thank you. Thank you for you making time for this conversation. I ultimately believe that I want to. I hope this won't be our last conversation. I hope that
Me too.
this
Me
will be
too.
just the start of more conversations like this, and maybe more people who hear your message and hear this conversation, and say, you know what, I want to talk about. I'm willing to talk about my mask too. And we know that everyone isn't, and that's okay, because that's why we created the tool as anonymous. The people can go and make their mask anonymously, but thank you for being willing to share your mask here publicly with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for creating the space. I think this is deeper and more open than I've gone on a public forum, maybe ever. So I appreciate the opportunity. It's part of my work, so I really appreciate it.
Well, is there anything else you want to let folks know, or any? We'll put your link to your LinkedIn, so they
Hmm.
can see that first thing that we talked about. But is there anything you want to say to folks before we close up here? I just want to give you that space.
I think I'm looking for kindred spirits right now, where if I looked at who is trying to model vulnerability, who's trying to show up differently, there's so much good work in destigmatizing mental health. But I think those of us who are straight Asian American male leaders like me, we've been riding on the coattails. If I look at who's stepping up and talking about this, it's people from the LGBT community, other people of color, people, women in tech. It's pretty much like so many other segments of people, but us Asian male leaders in tech. And I know there's a pull for more of us to show up this way because you're sending me DMs on LinkedIn and you're letting me know. So I have data to validate this. So I'm just going to put out the call. Uh, if this is something you want to help support, I don't have a particular ask for what I would ask you to do other than come talk to me, because I'm just looking for partners. I'm looking to build a movement like you are, because I think we can do so much more.
You can do it. And anything we can do in Ever Forward to help that, if the mask activity, the tool helps to open those conversations up, however we can serve in that way, let us
Oh,
know.
I'm going to show my team the mask activity, and they're going to
Awesome.
say, "Not right now," but I'll keep tugging on them.
Well, we have to do it's a digital version, right? So they can actually do it digitally. They're all anonymous, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
have a reflection conversation afterwards. You know.
Yes.
So, and I think you and I saw your last post, and I was like, I would love to chat about that because I think it's a tool that companies can use in an anonymous way, but in real time get some feedback about what was happening behind these masks of people that are in our spaces that we often would never know, you know. So
It's
however I can
it's a yeah, it's a really great prompt of like it helps you kind of start to pour out what might be in there.
yeah. And I'll send that link to you so you have that as well. And folks, if you want to make a mask, you can do that at millionmasks.org anonymously. You know, Newton and I shared ours publicly here, but you don't need to share it publicly. But maybe you can tell one person about it. Tell somebody about this conversation. And we look forward to you also being a part of the movement as well. Thank you, folks. Newton, thank you for being a part of this conversation. I so
Thank you,
appreciate
thank
you,
you,
man.
thank you.
Thank you for your time. And we look forward to seeing you again, brother. The Taking Off the Mask podcast is produced by Ryan Louie. Graphics are by Kelly Wong. And a special thanks to the team at Ever Forward, Vanessa Cortez and Choke Allen Alvarez. We'd like to thank everyone who's been a part of the creation of this podcast as we cross the 100th episode milestone and begin the work to the next 100. We hope that everyone who's been a part knows that they're a part of the Taking Off the Mask family. And we look forward to you being a part of it as well. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe, write a 5-star review, and share, as we look forward to continuing to have conversations that matter. Stay tuned for the relaunch of the Million Mask Movement on 11/11/22. That's November 11th of 2022. There's a math problem in there. You can find out more by visiting everforwardclub.org and following us on social media. Take care, and we'll see you soon.